Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are back with the review. I know all of you have been deeply in the pit of your stomachs, burning, waiting. You're checking your subscription feed constantly for, and of course, we're talking about 2025's Mouse of Horrors, the first of what looks to be many more Steamboat Willie horror properties. Yes, as we know, we got Screamboat coming out. I think probably the highest profile release of
Probably
all of
most
these.
promising as well.
Yeah, definitely. Got some
I can't
excitement
think
there.
anything off the top of my head that would top that one. That one actually looks like it's got some quality and some unique takes to it. But
I knew of this one and Mousetrap from last year, which we had nothing but positive things to say about. That was a stinker for sure. Jesus, that was rough. That was maybe worst film of 2024 that we watched.
it's certainly a contender. Yeah, if off the top of my head right now, I would say probably the worst. I'd have to actually look at my list. There were a couple that were pretty bad, but I'll say definitely Mousetrap was one of the top worst films. And we don't like to speak too negatively, but sometimes when people are chatting, spreading rumors, I don't know, but sometimes we gotta be a little negative, I guess.
Yes, and Luke is alluding to some things. If you know, you know. But yeah, this is one of those. This is just one of those things that, like, I guess, comes with the territory for us. As most of you know, we kind of jumped on the whole, I guess you'd call them fairy tale horror films, twisted childhood universe stuff. We're very much in the loop on all of this. So we got reviews for The Mean One, Blood and Honey films, recently Peter Pan, and it's one of those things where I think, if you have people behind these that are having fun with it, are putting a little bit of work into it, and actually like bringing you something that's at least digestible, they can be good. And I think we recently saw a very prominent, very nice version of that with Peter Pan Neverland Nightmares, actually making a pretty good effort to bring us a character that was pretty creepy, pretty scary, pretty disturbing when it comes to just what they were able to do with that concept. And I was optimistic-ish with this one. I thought the imagery we saw was kind of neat. I appreciated the design of the Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie that we got in this one. It was definitely a big step up from Mousetrap. And I just went in with a very open mind. And you know what? I gotta say, this movie, you're all going to be very surprised to hear this. I'm giving it just probably a slight edge over Mousetrap. The slightest of edges. Because, yeah, this thing's a big pile of shit.
That is one big pile of shit.
I hated this fucking movie.
This was a rough watch,
Yeah.
And like you said, looking at the pictures that were released, I was with you where wasn't really expecting much. With these low budget films, I think we give them a lot more slack than anything that we go to the theater for, because we already know the budgetary constraints. We know that you're not going to be able to pull off these big set pieces. So really, when I look at these films like this, I'm just looking for, to have some fun, to make it as digestible as possible, and not to have too many negatives on that side of things. But unfortunately, this one, it was hard to overlook, because, you hop right into this one, and a lot of the acting in this is very noticeably bad. It's really hard to find your groove, as we talk about kind of, being able to sit in your seat and really enjoy the film. It just became so noticeable, that I'm watching a lot of bad acting, and that really did affect the story for me. I just was something where I was having really trouble engaging, where there's not narratively it's not a strong narrative, so you're not really telling this deep-rooted story, but I just need passable actors to get from one scene to the next. And I just kept finding myself being stuck and spinning my tires of one bad actor to the next bad actor, and with no real being able to grasp on any character, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm never really going into this stuff. I guess, we might have been a little bit spoiled with Peter Pan, actually having some pretty decent acting in it with, some characters that felt like they were kind of going somewhere. And I would say to a degree, Blood and Honey too. Definitely, they've stepped it
Absolutely.
up a little bit there. But, I definitely know going into this, it's like we're not going to get the pinnacle of actors. They're going to be, I guess, doing their best with what they have. But really, what I'm going in here for is I just want them to have fun with a movie like this. That's what we went into Blood and Honey, the first one, looking for. And I think for the most part, that first watch, it's a terrible film, but it's a lot of fun. That first viewing, because you're kind of laughing at it, you're kind of laughing with it, you're in on the joke a little bit. As opposed to, again, Peter Pan and Blood and Honey 2, where it's like, okay, they're actually taking a stab at this. They're making some good headway here. They're doing something a little bit more. So maybe we're a bit spoiled there, because all these movies have to be is a good, gory, fun time. And unfortunately, this one again is just it's just a slog, dude. Like there's just nothing. There's no real attempt, I could say, to make the mouse, I guess, any bits intimidating or enjoyable. Because like even with like Art the Clown, you know what I mean? Like he's goofy, but like even in that first film, they really did a lot to try to make him at least somewhat sadistic and kind of like, ooh, he's creepy, he's cool. They don't do any of that here. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm doing my best Art the Clown impression as I walk up doing my little dancing like he's Joker or something, just walking on the screen, and then I'm just gonna like stab people, and we're just gonna throw some practical blood, which I'll give them points. They use practical blood mostly.
And you look at David Howard Thornton in that performance for Art the Clown, and I know it's probably an unfair comparison just because how iconic Art the Clown has become, but it didn't start that way where, he created his own path where he knew that character was not going to speak. So you kind of really have to go into that miming aspect in your body movement and really create something iconic. Unfortunately, when you look at something like this and you're looking at this, offshoot of Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie, whatever, the performance just seemed like a cheaper version of David Howard Thornton, where
Mm-hmm.
if you look at everything that makes Art the Clown iconic, and this actor tried to do that, but it just felt less than. It felt like an imitation rather than carving out your own path to do something different and really make this character iconic, make it your own. And unfortunately, I think that really does hurt, because as you're looking at this, it just is so reminiscent of Art the Clown and not as good as David Howard Thornton that you're constantly reminded of that. And even when you're in the tension, I guess, as you're building tension where you're in the kills and he's still putting on this type of performance, it really does take you out of it. Again, with the acting, with that performance, it is hard to find yourself engaged in the film.
Yeah, and again, this is such a low bar, guys. Like, I'm not even telling you, like, we're not putting on the critic hat when we go in to watch Mouse of Horrors. And, that's kind of the deal with a lot of these. And it's just something where it's like we're trying to be a little bit more forgiving. But again, it's just like when you're trying so hard to do something that's not fun, it's like, what are we doing? Like, why are we just wasting all of this time? Like, it seems like they rent out these places, like whether it's a fun house or that arcade or whatever it was from Mousetrap, or this where they rent out like a fairground and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, we're just gonna have people running around and getting on the rides and doing stuff. To what end? You know what I mean? Like, the kills aren't very interesting. They're very one note. I would say one kill that had potential for me was this random guy who just starts getting whacked with a chain. I thought was like, oh, okay, wow, they're actually doing something with the gore there. It's kind of one of the first real like essences of like, okay, we're seeing some of the makeup. But then they have him like bite his neck, and it's just like they just put blood on there. There's no prosthetic, there's nothing there. It's like, oh, okay, that's what we're in for here. And it's just lazy, it's just like, I don't understand why, when they've seen the backlash that, like, our good friend Scott Chambers and Reese Frick Waterfield have gotten from things like Blood and Honey, that people are just like, oh yeah, we can just do that, when it's like these guys have literally been like raked over the coals for so long about that one film that there are people who won't even give their new ones a shot, that are actually like putting forth effort. And it's like, no, we're just content with doing that. And I know they're just trying to blatantly, it seems like, cash grab with like this and Mousetrap. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, this is what makes this concept so hard for people to latch onto. So to some end, there's some frustration there because you have people out here who are, you know, trying to have fun with it. But then you have people like this who it's just clearly, that's an IP. We got to jump on it. Let's make a movie in 10 days, call it, and like, let's just get it out there, throw it on Tubi.
100%, you know, and it does honestly feel like, if obviously you could tell in the title, Mouse of Horrors, that if, you know, Steamboat Willie was not in the public domain, I don't think this would have even been made, just because there's no real attempt to create some sort of unique backstory to tell a unique story. It really is just this instance, and we have to put, you know, a familiar mask on someone as Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie, and say, hopefully this is going to catch some eyes. People are going to turn this on when they're on Tubi, and just give it a watch. And, you know, I think, I don't know if it's, I didn't watch a trailer for this, so I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. So I don't want to go too deep into it, but, you know, there's some connective tissue, I guess you would say, in terms of forcing a hand to say, no, we're connected to the Twisted Child universe in some sense. And it just, for me, the narrative took a drastic change. I was not expecting where this narrative goes and what they spend a lot of time doing. That's the story we were getting here. It just became, you know, we set the table from one aspect of it where you think you're going to get this kind of traditional slasher where it's guy in a mouse head and going to be chasing some young kids, and that's the route we're going to go. Very Friday the 13th, very 80s slasher. But this takes a very different turn, and you spend a lot of time in like two opposing forces engaging each other. And I was just like, wow, this is, we're spending a lot of time here, and I don't really care about it.
Yeah, it's laughable, like at times, and not even in the good way. Like, it's just laughable, like roll your eyes. And that's all I'm saying here. I really need to get this across, that it's like, we are not judging this movie like a serious, like, horror film by any means. We're just looking to have some fun, and that's all that we went into this trying to have. And it's not. It's just literally just cringeworthy lines from this again, like you put it there perfectly. Like, the story we start getting into is just like, why are we doing all this? This is way too much. They kind of set it up like this urban legend thing, and I thought, okay, very simple slasher. They'll probably hang out at this like dockside fairgrounds, you know, maybe like a Jersey Shore kind of boardwalk-esque area, and that's where this is going to take place. Very simple. You know, I could get down with that if the gore is good, the kills are creative, and that's it. But no, they just overcomplicate the hell out of it. And you know what? I don't necessarily care about spoilers, so I guess we'll just say it now because I do want to talk about it. Just because I have looked high and low on this. The only connection I can see is that some of the producers who did produce Blood and Honey 1 produced this. So yes, it's a little bit of a shocker when you see the original mask from Blood and Honey for Pooh show up in this, and it's just kind of like, what are we doing here? And the only thing I can think of is, I haven't talked to Scott or Reese or anybody about this. I plan on it, but I know this is not connected. There's no way this could be. The only thing I could think of is that if this is, it's got to be within that movie universe that they put the first Blood and Honey into. That's the only thing I can think of, is like that's the only thing that would make sense. And if so, it's like, why are you doing this? Why are you bastardizing the property that they're trying to resurrect with two solid films, and then you're just going to start putting shit like this around it? No, please don't.
Yeah, it was definitely jarring. And, you know, I looked on the IMDb page, and there's a picture plastered front and center there. So I'm guessing it's not really a big spoiler, but just this idea in terms of performance, especially even you look at the original Blood and Honey and the performance in this one with Pooh, it is drastically different, I think, where it's so awkward, it's so weird. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the review, performances across the board are bad and awkward. It's just, it's hard to get into these scenes because I'm not buying anything that any of these characters are doing, especially when you're nonverbal and it is all just for that body work. It just doesn't seem authentic. It feels like the actors are awkward, like they don't 100% know what they should be doing, especially when it comes to Pooh. It was just like these weird movements that don't really come across. And another thing, And during these fight scenes, it seemed very awkwardly quiet in certain times where there wasn't
The
much.
sound design was not there.
The sound
It was
is
not
absolutely terrible. There are things that don't match up. You have our Mickey Mouse character clapping at one point, and the sound is not matching up at all. It is something that it should not be a focal point, but it's so bad that you can't help but just pay attention to it. And there are so many instances of that. There's like, I think one of her characters throws salt over her shoulder and hits another character in their eye, and there's like this big clack sound, and I'm like, why is this happening? It seemed very lazy, and we've done a short film, and it seemed like we put more effort into that short film and its sound design certainly than we got into this hour 20 film that's on Tubi. It was such a wild experience.
I can tell you that Adrian and I, our co-editor, he sat down with me for at least 2 weeks, every couple days. Like, I'd be working on it daily and he would come over every couple days to help me clean it up because he's got a background with all that sound and stuff. And it's just like the level of like layers and things that you put into it. It's like you can tell when a sound design is at least competent. Now, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, we did top tier amazing sound design. No, but the fact that we spent so much time trying our absolute closest to get things frame by frame to line up when it comes to things as simple as footsteps. There's a sequence in here where someone is being chased through like a maze of mirrors, that classic carnival thing we've seen it 100 times. And I get that they're walking on like metal, but I could not tell if the clanking was supposed to be footsteps or if it was supposed to be in the soundtrack. I was so confused. It was audible, just gobbledygook that just gave me a headache after a while. I tell you guys, there's just really nothing here to latch onto. I think again the one positive I can give them is they use a little bit of practical blood here and there, and that they at least I like the design, I guess, of the Steamboat Willie thing. It had potential. But for me, I mean, it's clearly, this is obvious enough, but this is definitely a must see. I'm kidding. No, this is certainly a slash it. Like, I don't even think we have to even say it, but it is. But yeah, I know, and I think this is the last thing I can say before I toss it off to you there, Luke, for your final rating. But I know that the guy who plays Steamboat Willie, or as he's labeled here, the killer, Louis Santer, he did Tigger in Blood and Honey 2. And that's a fun character. I like what they did with that character. It was very vicious, very brutal. You could tell there was some effort there. I don't put it on him for his performance as much as the fact that there was no vision behind it, as to where you can see that the people, obviously Scott and Reese, who are working on Blood and Honey 2, had an idea of what Tigger was supposed to be like. They gave him some points and they played with it. There's nothing here. It was literally like, you're in costume, all right, do your best Art the Clown impression, we'll call it a day. And that's just a waste, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think it comes down to bad direction and not really knowing what you want out of this character. When you look at something like David Howard Thornton and him carving out that path more so, he uses those over-exaggerated expressions, and it works for Art the Clown. He did it, so that's his. Everything else is the charm is in the moderation of the performance, where this one seemed like it was turned up to 11, and it was just like, put on this crazy performance, and it just doesn't work. The actor does this little twitching for the killer, and it just comes off as not authentic. It just seems like we're trying too hard to put something that the audience can look at and say, oh, he's really trying here, and it just did not feel authentic to me. So for me, this is easy, slash it. It just didn't really have any redeeming qualities for me, unfortunately. I wasn't looking for much, but the boxes that I had were not checked in this, unfortunately. It's a short watch, shorter than a lot of things, but I couldn't believe how long that the film felt as I was watching this. I think I timed it and I was 35 minutes into it. And I said, really? It feels like I've been here for an hour. And, they don't cover much in terms of a narrative, anything like that. But the repetitive of the scenes, it seems so redundant at times, especially once we get into the fight scenes. It's just like, back again, here we are. And it just felt like I don't need to be wasting my time here. Unfortunately, we don't like to be that negative here on the channel, but this one, it just doesn't have anything redeeming. I can't even say, oh, it's fun to put on as background noise. It just doesn't work. So unfortunately, this one, you see it on Tubi. I'm gonna have to tell you, pass on this one and check out something else maybe that you've seen that you do enjoy, because I did not find any enjoyment out of this one.
Yeah, and again, I stress it one more time. We're not looking for Shakespeare here. We're not looking for anything that's like, going to be something like, oh my God, you have to see this. We're just looking for something dumb and fun. And when you can't even be that, you're just slop. And that's unfortunate, because that's what a lot of this is going to be. And, we're definitely, like Luke said, we don't try to be as negative. We're honest, but, we're not going to sit here and try to rip somebody apart like we're doing here. It's like, it's just very, very upsetting when, we have the unique view that we have with some of the other properties that are doing stuff with this. And you can see, kind of how the fudge is made in the sense, and you see how much effort's being put into it. And you do see an improvement film after film to have something that's like, okay, we're going to ride off the coattails of that, but we're going to put the bare minimum effort. And I would say this film makes, this one makes Blood and Honey 1 look like a fucking masterpiece to me. Like, at least I could watch that one again, no matter how boring it is as it gets through the midsection there. But like, I mean,
it's an attempt to do something with it.
There's still like a cohesive kind of so bad it's good quality to that, where this is just awful. Like, this is just garbage. Better than Mousetrap, but only by like 0.5%. That's all I'm giving it. So yeah, not looking too good. Mickey, Steamboat Willie. I hope Screamboat can redeem us there. At least I know a lot of people were worried when we saw the first image, and believe me, it was a little off-putting myself, but I can tell you, after seeing a lot of the costume and the stuff that I've heard from their kind of road tour they've been doing, a lot of really fun stuff. I know somebody very close to us compared it to Leprechaun, and how kind of that goofy, zany fun to it. And I was like, that's promising. I'm looking forward to that. So I hope that can strike that balance between goofy horror fun that we're looking for. So that's unfortunate, but that's what you get. So definitely let us know down below if you're going to check out Mouse of Horrors. If not, good. Save yourself the time. But other than that, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff up on the channel. Luke just broke down some disturbing Japanese horror films for us. Yes, I know many of you have been asking for that. Many of you are very much loving that list, so thank you so much for all the support there. As well as, if you want to go back to last week, we kind of had a quieter week on the channel, but last Monday I talked about 5 films that are more disturbing than a Serbian film. Really love the support on that. Thank you guys so much. I had the most fun. It's been great. It's honestly the start of this year. If we didn't have such solid new releases with some of the stuff we've seen that we're going to be talking about soon, and personally Wolfman, I'd be in a very dark place right now, guys. But we've had some good stuff, so I will be happy with that. Mouse of Horrors aside. So other than that, that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.
That is one big pile of shit.